to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.
All right, good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the 283rd episode of the Alfa Insurance Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. We've got a lot to get into today. I'm going to go over the incredible game we had on Friday, the Cartersville overtime win over Cass, just give my thoughts on it, and then how I think 5A and that region is going to shape up. We're going to go over the region standings. There were a lot of big results to kind of reflect on and look at what this playoff picture is looking like. And then I'm going to reveal my play of the week in the first segment. And that is brought to you by georgiaconstructioncareers.com. So let's go ahead and get started with my play of the week. I'll set the stage for it first. So it's going to come from the North Cobb Walton game, which was a pretty wild one. And as a lot of you know, Walton was a little banged up after the North Paulding game. I think Wyatt Sonderman broke his hand. You had some other injuries, guys trying to return to the fray. And then North Cobb's just been a nightmare matchup for Walton recently. And I think in the past, what has hurt Walton is you had guys like Malachi Singleton at quarterback. He would just have huge days just giving them problems up the middle. When you have a big physical quarterback, obviously North Cobb has a great run game, and it's just been a tough place to play. I think Walton's comeback win was the first time that a Cobb County school had beaten North Cobb, I think, in 3 years. Let's go ahead and check it real quick. And that is shaping up to be a crazy region. All right, so the last time North Cobb lost a Cobb County game was 2019 when they lost to Marietta and McEachern. So in 2020, they swept it, 35-18 win over Walton, ended up falling to Lowndes in the second round. Last year, 2021, they swept it, 51-29 win over Walton. In 2022, this last year, 33-6 win over Walton. So they've had the offensive success, but then defensively, they've been able to stop that Walton offense. You could probably say the last two matchups, that was the worst output by Walton of the season in both cases. And so to come into this matchup, it's at North Cobb. Walton's undefeated. One of their big goals is getting that region title. And then to fall behind 21-0 and have to come back was truly crazy. And the guy that did it and sparked that comeback was Cam Lloyd, the speedster receiver. He came up huge in the North Paulding game. Once Wyatt went down, he was making big-time plays against Grayson in our Corky Kell Classic. He had the big touchdown that I think put Walton up 42-0 or maybe 49-0. It was just a really impressive play, and he's got so much speed. And so his play in this game gave Walton the spark they needed to have this comeback. They ended up going on, I believe, a 35-7 run to close out the game. And the reason I have this play pulled up is because I think it was such a good play call. really simple, honestly. It's just you're going to see Hecklinski drop back. Cam's not even going to – sorry, a picture just fell. Cam's not even going to run a route. He's just going to wait for his blockers to get set, and we're going to have to run it a few times. The level of execution on these blocks that Cam gets is so impressive. You're going to see Daniel Calhoun like 20 yards downfield. Think Hunter Teal, maybe Jude Cascon. There's like really 6 or 7 just textbook blocks on this play, and then you're going to see the speed from Cam Lloyd. And so this was the play that sparked the comeback. It was a tough game. We mentioned they were banged up a little bit, but really when you look at who is kind of the player of the week within Cobb County this week, it's got to be Cam Lloyd. When you look statewide, I think he has a case as well. And all of Gwinnett was off this last week. All the attention in 7A was on these big Cobb County matchups. We'll get into the McEachern-Harrison game, but let's just break this play down. This is my GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com play of the week. Credit to Cam Lloyd, but let's run it. All right, so you'll see him. He's going to post up at like the 20 right there. And look at these blocks. Let's run it back. See if we can get a down. Looks like that's on first down. Okay, so he came in jet motion across the field to set this up. And there's Daniel Calhoun. You can see him. He's number 77. So yeah, he's at the 45 right now, closest to the sideline. And you can see Cam behind him. You also have a tight end. The receivers are there. North Cobb's trying to get the angles, but look at these blocks. Boom. And so that is going to get the sideline hyped up. Yeah, one more time. That's it. That is my play of the week. So let's bring up these stats real quick. So with all that going on with the injuries, Cam Lloyd steps up 4 receptions, 196 yards, and 3 touchdowns. What a performance. He picked up his first offer last week after his big outing against North Paulding. He's clocked the fastest time out of anyone in the GHSA this year. I think it was like 22 miles per hour. That's fast if you're running in a track and field event. It's even more impressive when you got the ball in your hand. You're trying to just outpace the angles and get into the end zone, and he is having quite an October so far. And so that was a big win for Walton. Certainly puts them in the driver's seat of their region if they can continue to handle business. And that was a top 10 matchup according to the AJC. Walton was number 3. North Cobb was number 10. We talked about how much success North Cobb has had. First Cobb County loss since 2019. So up next, Walton's going to be at home against Kennesaw Mountain. Then they'll have Cherokee, Osborne, and Wheeler. And what is interesting at this point, Osborne and Wheeler are the only other teams in Region 5 that are undefeated within the region. And Osborne is 6-0 overall. And so this is the first time I believe they've been 6-0 since 1994. They had a really strong start to the season last year. They were 5-0, but then they finished 0-5. And that's under head coach Luke Mom Salam. And so this year they were 5-0 heading into their region opener against Kennesaw Mountain. Let's see what that result was last year. Last year Osborne lost 49-0. So they're undefeated. feeling good, big region game, get completely shut out. This year, a 35-3 win on the road, stunning Kennesaw Mountain, who now drops to 1-5. And then Osborne has Cherokee coming up. They got Wheeler after that, and then they close out with Walton and North Cobb. So they want to get to the playoffs in this crowded region. They're going to have to either beat Cherokee or Wheeler for sure, and then we'll see how they stack up against the two premier teams year in and year out. But very interesting how that Kennesaw Mountain game played out, just with the huge result. Let's see if we have any stats from it. And that was a big win, because when you start 5-0 back-to-back years, but then last year you lose your final 5 games, I mean, that was a big opportunity for them to really get over the hump. That's a term that a lot of teams use, but they truly did it with that win. Not a lot of teams are 6-0 right now. All right, so wow. Defensively, they held Kennesaw Mountain to just 3 of 12 passing for 52 yards, and then limited them no rushing touchdowns. 40 attempts by Kennesaw Mountain for 141 yards. So big day for the Osborne defense. They forced 3 fumbles, and then offensively just took control of the game. All right, so there you have it with kind of how that region's shaking up. Wheeler, that's the other team that has a 1-0 start in Region 5. They had a nice 36-19 win over Cherokee. That was big for them. Wheeler earned a playoff spot last year. Looks like they have a chance to do it again. The win over Cherokee, that certainly is going to help. Let's see if okay, no stats at this, but Wheeler will be hosting North Cobb next week, and then you're going to have the Cherokee Osborne game. All right, I'm looking at, okay, let's look at the Region 1 results real quick. It was the Wintersville Classic, Valdosta and Lowndes. Only the 4th time in the many decades that they faced that neither team was ranked, and Valdosta got the 37-27 victory. So Lowndes has had a really rough stretch the last couple weeks. They got completely dominated by Grayson recently, and that was not a good way to open up Region 1. I think it's still Colquitt's to win. You had Camden County edging Richmond Hill 35-33. That game was close the entire time. And then in Region 2, not too surprised with these results, but you had Westlake cruising past Pebblebrook 42-7, and then Carrollton cruising past East Coweta 56-24, and that was the televised matchup. And it looks like that Carrollton offense looked outstanding, and that's the interesting thing about that matchup. Was what was East Coweta's defensive strength? It was stopping the run. That's how they were able to have a really strong showing against Sandy Creek, who primarily runs the football. Carrollton, obviously, with Juju and all those weapons, they have the ability to pass. They put trust in their quarterback and put 56 on the board. All right, so let's go to Region 3, though, because we're going to be focusing on that this week when we go to Harrison for the Harrison and North Paulding game. For North Paulding, this is a 5-team region. They're the only team that hasn't played a region game yet. They were off on a bye. You have McEachern and Marietta both off to 1-0 starts in the region, and then Harrison and Hillgrove both suffered losses this last week. And so North Paulding, when they play Harrison, it's an opportunity to get that first region win. And then, man, Harrison does not want to fall to 0-2 in the region. This is kind of like a reverse of what their season looked like last year, where they struggled early on. They lost to McEachern and then won the rest of the way to earn the playoff spot. This year, they were undefeated going into the McEachern game, and then were handed their first loss of the season. And so that was a 24-21 victory by McEachern. And then Marietta, a 17-7 win over Hillgrove. And that improves them to 2-5 overall. And I think I have results from that one pulled up. One sec. Okay, that was Jarian Campbell had the big game for McEachern. He had 3 touchdowns. So let's see. All right. Jarian Campbell ran for 149 yards and 3 touchdowns to lead McEachern to a 24-21 victory over Harrison in the Region 3 opener at Walter Cantrell Stadium. Credit to McEachern. They're actually one of the hottest teams in 7A right now. We saw their absolute dominant win over Valdosta recently, and now to open up with the win over undefeated Harrison, that is a big deal. Coach Reed's making his debut. He's an outstanding coach. It looks like they are really starting to hit their stride. So Campbell, he had the 3 touchdowns, 149 yards. As a group, McEachern rushed for 280 yards. So we know with North Paulding, they've got one of the best passing attacks in 7A this season. But also they got Javarius George at running back, and they can do that as well. So will North Paulding try to go heavy on the run after seeing the success that McEachern was able to have? We will wait and see. But Coach Reed, after the game, gives credit to Jarian, says he's been the bell cow of the offense, one of the best backs in the state. Definitely led them, and this is the 10th straight win that McEachern has posted over Harrison. Very interesting stat right there. Let's see. McEachern was up 7-0 at the half. Harrison quarterback Braylon Ford opened the third quarter with a 79-yard touchdown throw to Brady Cluse, one of the best receivers in the state, that tied it up 7-on-7. So it was very low scoring until the second half. The Indians' ground game responded with Kenny Guinea runs of 14 and 29 yards, capped off by Campbell's 32-yard touchdown. And then, so Kenny, he's also in that. Yeah, he's McEachern's quarterback. Hold up one sec. All right, McEachern's defense would force the first turnover of the game when corner Cam Trailer hit receiver Quentin Charles, knocking the ball loose with safety Shamar Hall. He's a big-time prospect we've seen in person. Shamar Hall recovering the football. The following drive would stall, leading Harrison to tie up the game with a one-play drive. Xavier Hill had an 89-yard touchdown run. And then Jonathan Rodriguez, a 47-yard field goal, put them up 24-14, and then Harrison got a touchdown with 4 minutes left to cut it within 3, and then that was it. The clock ran out, but huge win, very close game. We'll see how Harrison responds. Now let's go to the Osborne game real quick. All right, so the Cardinals guaranteed themselves a winning regular season for the first time since 1994 and earned their first region win since 2011. That's crazy. Hadn't won a region game since 2011. And 35-3. The victory also marked the first time that Osborne had beaten a Cobb County opponent since a win over Sprayberry in 2004. It also marked the program's widest margin of victory over an intra-county opponent since a 36-3 win in 1974. Amazing stats right there. Osborne, they have been making strides, though. I know we talked about last year, the 5-0 start, the 0-5 finish, but I think it's like across the board. You see what they've been doing in basketball. It's an incredible region in that sport as well. They have been going up against these teams year in and year out, and it looks like that has just gotten them better. They came in motivated to make the history that they've achieved so far. First region win since 2011. That is amazing. It says Osborne threw Kennesaw Mountain off by running the Wildcat on many of its offensive plays. All 216 of the Cardinals' yards came on the ground without even attempting a pass. LaCorey Humphrey led all rushers with 107 yards and a touchdown on 16 carries, with Cervantes complimenting him. Aiden Williams added 25 yards and a score on 8 touchdowns. Osborne had previously not experimented with the Wildcat formation this season. It was something different, something that Kennesaw Mountain hasn't seen. Osborne coach Salam said it was a really great job by Coach Philip Ironside and the offensive staff putting together a really good offensive game plan. So Coach Ironside used to be Hillgrove's head coach. He has gone up against these Cobb County opponents for years, leading Hillgrove. So he has definitely brought an X factor in terms of coaching. So very interesting. Beating Kennesaw Mountain without attempting to pass, holding their passing attack to just 3 completions, and a really dominant win. All right, the other result we had to talk about before we take a quick break, man, is a score that I was just shocked to see, and that was the Roswell-Lassiter game. When I checked, it was probably like halftime of our game. I saw, oh, that must be a typo. There's no way Roswell has 70 points in the first half. Well, sure enough, they did. And it was an 84-6 home victory over Lassiter. Just crazy. So they got quotes, though. Let's get into it. So Lassiter head coach Sean Tom afterwards, he goes, obviously, this was not a good performance. You can see that from the scoreboard. We had 10 3-and-outs on 14 drives and 3 turnovers. That's not very good. For Roswell, the 84 points broke the previous team record, which was set when it scored 71 in a win over Centennial earlier this season. And people will see that score, and it might look like, okay, they were just trying to run out the clock, but you have to remember, this came in the first half. And when the opponent is going 3-and-out, as they said, 10 out of 14 times, and that's just the way it goes. So it says, I was really happy how we came out and played well from the start, said Chris Pruitt, who improved to 6-1 and 3-0 in the region. We played to our level, our standard, our speed the whole game. Lassiter forced Roswell into 3rd and long on its opening drive. KJ Smith surveyed the defense, stepped up, and then ran up an empty middle field for a 40-yard gain. Then he found Ethan Gorilla for a 16-yard touchdown. He ended the night with just 3 passes, all of which went for touchdowns. There was no resistance defensively. This is from Lassiter's head coach. It kind of challenges your manhood. So that's an interesting quote right there. Lassiter's biggest challenge came on special teams, starting after his first possession. Ryder Duffy blocked the kick, the punt attempt, and then Tyler Harrison picked it up and walked it in from 10 yards. That put him up 14-0. You got Sinquin Smith started the second quarter by letting a punt go over his head, but that only allowed his blockers to set up. He turned upfield and broke 4 tackles surrounded by teammates, and then that put him up 42-0. Then Smith had another punt return go for a touchdown, 55 yards. So you have the offensive touchdowns, all 3 of his passes going for touchdowns. You have a blocked punt go for a touchdown, and then 2 punt returns. And that is how you end up with an 84-6 victory. So that is a tough one for Lassiter. Let's see how they respond to that. But certainly a score we can't ignore. All right, we'll get into one more. So let's look at the BT Pope game. This was a must-win game for Blessed Trinity. They were favored, obviously, against Pope, but Pope has gotten a lot more competitive. I've been impressed with Coach O'Sullivan so far. If you look at last year compared to this year, yeah, they still haven't found a win, but they're a lot more competitive. They were competitive in the Kell game earlier this year. And so as long as BT went in there and played their style. I knew they would have a good chance, and they got a 43-10 victory. Andrew Nelms had a 43-yard field goal. For Pope that put them up 3-0 on their first drive. So, I mean, when you're scoring on your opening drive with a 43-yard field goal, it's a legit football team. Pope is heading in the right direction. All right, so then BT on their first drive converted on 2 third downs and then went 80 yards on the drive with a Cameron Betts touchdown run, and then they were in complete control from there. Defense stepped up. You had Brooks Goodman finding tight end Logan Crispo for a 4-yard connection, and they were up 27-3 at the half. So Roswell still is in the driver's seat in that region, but that was a big win for BT. They will play Johns Creek next, and so that will be heating up in that 6A. But we'll go ahead and take our first quick break. Get back on the other side. We'll talk some 5A.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, does it matter if this leaks?
It don't matter to me, can't see it from my house.
Illegal use of hands, improper training.
GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com has 14 different highly skilled trades with tuition-free training in our certified apprenticeship programs to train you the right way. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
All right, so I'm going to start just by reading our general recap of that game, and then I'll give my thoughts on it. But a week after fourth-ranked Cartersville came back from a 17-0 deficit to win its Region 7 opener against Calhoun, sophomore Reed Azell came down with the game-sealing interception in overtime to quash Cass's hopes of defeating the Purple Hurricanes for the first time since 2007. It was a 21-14 overtime victory. After a missed field goal attempt at the end of regulation, the Colonels entered overtime without star running back and cornerback, punter, and holder Devin Henderson, who left the game with a leg injury at the 2:36 mark of the fourth quarter after providing both touchdowns for Cass. For Cartersville, Richard Houston scored in the second, and sophomore quarterback Nate Russell connected with junior Adarian Taylor Wilson for a third quarter touchdown and game winner. And the game winner in overtime. So that's the end of that recap right there. But first things first, Adarian Taylor Wilson, Cartersville's receiver, Coach Foster said he was waiting for him to have a breakout performance. He certainly did in that one. Cartersville's offense was struggling throughout the night to really get anything going. Cass's defense looked pretty solid, I'm not going to lie. I thought it was going to be a high-scoring game, but the Cass defense really did a good job of just making it difficult. And besides those Adarian Taylor Wilson touchdowns, the Cartersville didn't have much going for them in that department. He came up with the big plays. Credit for Nate Russell as well. I think both of those touchdowns came on big third down throws. As for how the game played out, it was 7-7 at the half, and I don't know how it was only 7-7. Cass really dominated the first half. They looked like the better team. They looked like they were going to win, but obviously you knew Cartersville was built to come back. They've done it many times, and they've had Cass's number. The issue I had, though, Sokovie White had multiple big-time plays where he was just cooking the Cartersville defenders. No one on that team could hang with him one-on-one. He was requiring all that attention. He had a big touchdown called back at one point They said it was offsetting penalties. I still don't know how that works. Normally, if it's offsetting, the play would stand. But basically, it was just a huge throw downfield by Brody. He catches it over two guys, stays on his feet, gets into the end zone. I feel like he could have done that even more. And as good as Devin Henderson was, Sokovie was clearly dialed in, and I would have liked to see him get the ball even more. And so Cartersville didn't gain their first lead of the game until, I believe, late in the third quarter. And then Cass had the response and tied it up. Then they ended up getting a stop, and they're on this final drive. There's like 6 minutes left in the game, and they're able to run out the clock. We mentioned Devin Henderson got injured with like 2.5 minutes left. Basically got folded up on by multiple guys. It was clear he was going to be out for the game. I went down immediately. I hope he's not out for the season. The Liberty commit that was doing it all for them. But he gets to the sideline, and then on that drive, I think I got the roster right here. Tight end Chase Tatum, a good-looking sophomore, he had 2 key catches on that drive. Cass is moving the ball. They still have 3 timeouts in their pocket. They know Devin's out. It's a tie game. And you think, okay, this is it. They've looked better the entire night. They've been moving the ball. Brody had a couple big runs as well on that final drive. And then they get to like the 25-yard line. I think at this point there might have been like 18 seconds left. So they had time to get closer or to take a couple shots or to try to score a touchdown to win it. They had already missed a field goal. Both teams missed a field goal, I think, in the first half. And they end up basically just doing a quarterback sneak up the middle where at this point it's like a 32-yard field goal. And then they get to a 4th and 5 or 4th and 4. Cartersville jumps off sides, giving them a first down. So now they still have time and a timeout to maybe take another play. They end up lining up for the field goal, though. It's a fumbled snap because, as we mentioned, Devin Henderson's their holder. I don't think their backup holder had much experience this season. And so, luckily for Cass, though, on that play, they got called for a false start. And so I was on the sideline, and a lot of the Cass fans, they couldn't see on the field, and said they were furious at the penalty because there were a lot of flags on that last drive, and they thought, oh, man, we're going to get backed up. But it was actually a good thing because if that flag didn't happen, the snap never even got set up. So Cass goes back another 5 yards. This time they sort of get the snap and hold handled pretty well, but then the kick just, you could tell it just wasn't a clean kick. It just hooks over to the left, and then it's a tie game in overtime. Cartersville gets the ball first. I mentioned Adarian Taylor-Wilson has a huge catch in the end zone, and then to seal the game, Reed Azell gets the interception. So it was an absolute thriller, but also just a heartbreaking way for Cass. That win would have been so huge for them. Both teams are 1-0 in the region. It's one of the more crowded regions in the state. We talk about it all the time. And this really is going to hurt Cass because at 1-1 right now, they're tied with Hiram, Calhoun, Dalton, and Cass there. So 4 teams at 1-1. Woodland Cartersville is at 0-2. They're at the bottom of the region right now. So Cass still has to play all 3 of those remaining teams, Hiram, Calhoun, and Dalton. They're going to have to win probably 2 of 3 to at least guarantee a spot in the playoffs, and those are really tough teams. Hiram's currently ranked number 5, Calhoun's number 8, and then Dalton is no joke either. They had a tough loss to Hiram in their region opener, and then just defeated Woodland 42-7. So tough games ahead. I do like Cass. They're going to have to continue to play great defense, but man, without Devin Henderson, as they mentioned on the broadcast, if you have a two-way player that gets hurt, that's like losing 2 players. Losing him, that's like losing 4 guys. And so a tough break for him. Kind of reminded me of like seeing the Teo Todd injury, where it's like a guy, there's not many that are that valuable to their team. Anytime you watch him play, it is just so evident the effort he puts in, his impact on both sides of the ball. That is a huge loss for them. They're going to have to rally, and I feel like a win over Cartersville would have been the first one since 2007. This is year 4 for Coach Gates. He talked about the 4-year plan, making Cass a relevant program. They had a tough loss to Rome in the opener, but then they've rallied and looked a lot better. And that would have made headlines. A lot of people in that Bartow County area, it's no secret that Cartersville has had Cass's number. If Cass would have gone in there, gotten the win over top 5 undefeated Cartersville team, that would have gotten a lot of people talking. And so you hate to see it. Pushing them to overtime is a big deal, but man, they had a chance to win that game. Just a tough break for them. I did enjoy it though, and credit to both programs. We'll see who comes out of that region. I think the playoff picture is still very active. What's up?
Carver Atlanta. Did you see that? We beat Mondays in the first loss. Did you see that?
Jonesboro?
Carver Atlanta beat Mondays Mill 29-0. Mondays Mill was
In 3A?
Yes.
Let me see this real quick. So we're talking about a 3A result. Carver Atlanta played, let's see, Mondays Mill. Yeah, that's right, 28-0 victory. So that's a 6A school. Mondays Mill was undefeated, just beat Jonesboro the previous week. So yeah, that's a huge win for them, and certainly a good sign for them, because last year we talked about how good that region was with Cedar Grove, Sandy Creek. I think Douglas is even better this year. They're 5-2. Sandy Creek 5-2, and then Cedar Grove is 2-5, which is so interesting. They had another tough loss to Carver Montgomery this last week. I think at one point they were down. I think they might have been up 9-3, and then Carver came back. So the defense will be good one week. The offense struggles. So I still don't think they've hit their stride. Still Cedar Grove, though. We'll see, but that's a good sign for Carver getting that win for sure. We'll look into that a bit more. But, yeah, I don't think there's ever been a Week 8 where I've seen more undefeated teams get their first loss. And there were a lot of them that were pretty significant upsets. Let's see real quick, though. Okay, so we're going back to 5A. I think one of the most intriguing teams in the state right now, a team that I'm about to shake up the composite rankings with, is Kell, who has not lost since the Parkview game, and they look really dangerous. I think they have the athletic advantage to stack up with anyone in 5A on both sides of the football. They've got a really underrated secondary. They got physical linebackers. They got a solid defensive front. And then offensively, you just brought back Bryce Clavin 2 weeks ago. This is his second week back after just competing on the national baseball circuit. And so you have Kamari Nix, who led them after the first week, didn't lose a game, did his thing, keeping the offense going. Now he is going to his natural position, which is where he's going to play at the next level, and that's in the secondary, but he's also able to come in offensively in a running back role. And then you have Peyton Zachary healthy, you got Kyle Vaca doing his thing. And so in this latest win by Kell, 59-0, they had 8 different guys score their 8 touchdowns, a true team victory. Bryce Clavin, 216 yards and 3 touchdowns all in the first half. So it is just very interesting to see what Kell has done with the adversity, having their quarterback be one of just a few nationwide to make the national team, compete for pretty much the last 6 weeks, and then to come back last week and then this week, and now they're set up to basically clash with GAC, who's also undefeated at this point, for the region title. And I mean, we saw Cass play, we saw Cartersville. I was impressed with what I saw from Cal week 1 against Parkview. I think if a couple things went their way, they would have actually come out with a victory in that game. So I'm saying, when you talk about a dark horse in a wide open 5A this year, I think it's got to be Kell at this point. They held Northview to just 66 total yards offensively. If you don't have a quarterback that can stretch the field with the deep ball, you aren't going to be able to have just a good outing against this Kell defense. They got Justin Logan at linebacker. I mean, he could be starting at linebacker at any 7A program. It's one of the best I've seen. And then, as I said, with that secondary, they let a couple potential interceptions go through their hands in that opener, a couple of tipped balls. I think late into the season, they're going to be able to create those turnovers. They're going to play with a lot of confidence, and I think as a team, Kell has earned the confidence that they're playing with, and I think it is a very good sign. And so when you look at 5A right now, you had Ware County, the defending champs. They've already lost to 2 4A programs. Coffee, obviously, I think they went to number 1 this week. They've been looking outstanding. 62-6 win this last week over Bradwell Institute. Region 2, you got Warner Robins. They're always in the mix. Jones County's 3-0. They had a really strong win over Ola this last week. Let's see, Northgate, I think they're another potential team that could win that Region 3. I think last year Northside Columbus won their first ever region title as Coach Oropeza, but this year they lost their opener to Harris County. I think Northgate's a team that could earn home field. Arabia Mountain, watch out for them. They're 6-1 this year. They've had some big wins. Obviously, you got Creekside. You can never count out Mays, but then outside of that, I mean, Jefferson, I just think I like Kell's chances in any of those games I just brought up, and I think Bryce Clavin would just have a very kind of heroic return if he's able to get them deep in the playoffs, and then once they're in that big game, watch out. The last time Kell, in my opinion, was this close to being a state championship contender was probably like the 2011-2012 season. They had Brandon Langley, Quincy Mauger, both just dynamic two-way stars. And then that was the year they ended up falling to Deshaun Watson in Gainesville, I think in the semifinals, in a game where they were up big and Deshaun just let them back. But I think this team, I am completely sold on what their potential is. Let's take one more quick break as obligated, and then I'll close it on the other side.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
your thing. We've got you covered.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.
All right, welcome back. We'll close out the show in this final segment. A couple other big results. 3A for sure. Carver Columbus beating Thomasville 28-14. They lost a close game to Thomasville last year. As you know, this year Carver has seen some games slip through their hands. The Brookwood game was a tough one. What was the game right before that? They lost to a Hapeville charter team that actually is now in the driver's seat of their region. I'll talk about that in a second. But then after those losses, actually 3 one-score losses in a row. Northeast, a great 3A team. Brookwood and Hapeville, now they have beaten Columbus 40-0, Thomasville 28-14, and they are 2-0. Sorry, I'm on the wrong Carver team. One sec, guys. That's Carver Atlanta. Okay, we got 2 scores right here. Okay, no, Carver Columbus beat Thomasville this last week. All right, Max Preps is throwing me off. The recap we have is wrong. I'm sorry, guys. But, yeah, they beat Thomasville. They're 2-0 in the region. That's a big deal. All right, let's look real quick, though, at looking at 4A real quick. All right, so start with Region 1. Cairo, they're 7-1 right now. They are one of the hottest teams in the state. I believe they've won 7 straight. Let me just double check. Yeah, they lost to Thomas County Central week 1. I think they're one of the top ranked teams in 6A right now. Absolutely cruising. And then they have just been dominating. They have back-to-back shutouts, and then this last win, 49-6. So they only have 2 games left on their schedule. They're going to be on a bye. And then Westover and then Bainbridge. But they've cracked the poll. That will be a big opportunity for them in Region 1. In Region 2, Spalding and Perry continue to dominate. Neither has lost within Class 4A this year. Perry's only loss was in their opener to Houston County. They're on a collision course for that region. They've already separated themselves at least 2 games from the rest of the field. Benedictine, their win over Burke County puts them in the driver's seat. You have Burke County getting ready to play Islands next. They should win that one. New Hampstead and Wayne County should be interesting. New Hampstead, they put up, I think, 500 yards on Benedictine in the loss last week, and then had a 50-34 win over Southeast Bullock. New Hampstead and Wayne County will be huge for that playoff positioning. And then Region 4, Trinity Christian is in the driver's seat after a 42-31 win over Whitewater. And all those teams will be off this next week. Stockbridge, 48-0 win over Lovett. Their only losses, Douglas County and Colquitt County. The first 2 weeks, they've won 5 straight. I think they are extremely dangerous, and then that whole region will be off on a bye this week. Hapeville Charter, as we mentioned, is first place in their region. That's Region 6. They're off to a 2-0 start, and you got a 4-way tie now between Holy Innocents, Miller Grove, Stevenson, and Westminster, all at 1-1. Holy Innocents had a massive win over Miller Grove. It was tight in the first quarter, tight in the second quarter as well, but then they just pulled away 47-7. And then Stevenson roared back to beat Westminster 20-13. So that region is a complete log jam right now with Hapeville at 2-0 and then 4 teams at 1-1. You got Central Carroll and Northwest Whitfield both at 2-0 in Region 7. Central Carroll is going to be off, so that whole region, man, 4A has a ton of buys this upcoming week. And then the big one in Region 8, it's going to be tough, but East Forsyth is going to play North Oconee 1 week after falling to Cherokee Bluff. That was their first loss this season, 10-3. North Oconee will be favored in that one, and if North Oconee wins that one, that will all but seal the deal for them in Region 8. So I think Class 4A is going to be interesting as well. My favorite right now, you got to go with Benedictine, but I really like what North Oconee is doing. I think Stockbridge is my sleeper, the way they have responded and just having 2 losses to Douglas County and Colquitt. That's not so bad. But let's see. And then, yeah, we mentioned where we'll be this week. We're going to be at Harrison. Big storyline, how is Harrison going to respond? A big region opener for North Paulding. Can they repeat as Region 3 champions? That will remain to be seen. And then tomorrow, we are going to have Underrated and Overlooked. We'll talk about all the crazy college football results this last week, NFL, recruiting news, high school, and then the big matchups to look forward to. So tune into that. We'll be live tomorrow at 12. ScoreATL.com. We got more content up there. We broke news about the Georgia Elite Classic. Go to our social media. I know we're announcing a lot of nominations and just resources for that, because that's coming up. As you know, it's already week 9 of the season, and we also have the state playoffs for softball and volleyball coming up. But thank you so much for joining us. Tune in tomorrow, and hope everyone has a good week.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.